Hello, and welcome back to Bombchu. Today we'll be taking a look at the Humble Choice bundle from January 2020. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and happy first bundle of 2020 is finally here. Let's dive in and see what we got. This month's Humble Original is Unparallel, a top-down 2D puzzle game with a focus on mirrors. Controls are super simple. You can walk around and you can drag boxes. But as you'll quickly see, everything around you is not as it seems. You'll need to cross large gaps in the floor, which have hidden pathways shown to you through mirrors. The core mechanics boil down to put the box on the switch to open the gate, but the box or the switch could be hidden in the mirror as well. I really liked this one. The mechanics were fun and the music was dope. I did encounter one glitch where a switch didn't trigger after I placed a box on it, and the box couldn't be removed from it. This required a restart, but it didn't happen again, and it didn't matter all that much because the game is pretty short, less than 15 minutes long. I'd love to see it get fleshed out into a full game someday. Grip is a futuristic action racing game inspired by several console racers from the late 90s. You drive a car with 4 big wheels which can drive no matter which way you get flipped. You can drive on walls and ceilings, and the environments are a pleasure to look at, especially with the pulsing electronic soundtrack. There were a lot of nice pieces, but for some reason I was a bit disappointed here. You have a jump, but this often serves no purpose, especially since you can't roll or do anything else to change your angle while airborne. You can pick up item boxes, but the variety is pretty limited, and I didn't find most of the items satisfying to use. Driving on the ceiling is cool, but often seems like it doesn't provide much of an advantage. I think I just got spoiled playing Distance back in the September bundle, which felt like it did a lot more with the jumping and wall riding mechanics. Not that this is a bad game in its own right, it's got great reviews on Steam, and fans of Roll Cage and Wipeout will likely have a blast, especially since hover cars were added to the game in a post-launch update. But for me, I'm just itching to replay Distance. Mages of Mystrallia is an action-adventure game about a girl learning to become a mage. There's a lot about this game that I really want to like, but all of it just rubs me the wrong way. The art style is vibrant, something I usually love, but while I think the artists were going for a simplistic look, it ends up with more of a low-quality look. Action combat with magic should be fun, but your spells have such a low reach, and enemies take just a few too many hits to kill that combat just kind of feels like a chore. There was a lot of dialogue that wasn't really telling an interesting story to me before I was allowed to get to any real gameplay, and puzzles were a bit too simple to be fun. I think with some tweaking this could be a really fun game. And supposedly the magic system gets a lot more interesting as you get further in, but this one really didn't make a strong first impression. I'm not sure if I'll come back to this one or not.
Them's Fightin' Herds is a 2D fighting game developed by Mezines. The game originally began production back in 2012 as a fighting game based around the popular reboot of My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, and the game was originally known as Fighting is Magic. After an impressive showing at EVO in one of the player's choice spots, the game was hit with the inevitable cease and desist from Hasbro. The team then decided to start over with all new art assets, with Friendship is Magic creator Lauren Faust helping to create new characters. In addition to that, as part of the game's Skullgirls Indiegogo campaign, they were also given use of the Skullgirls fighting engine for free. With the support of Lauren Faust and the engine from Skullgirls, Them's Fightin' Herds was born. The game features a fairly simple 4-button fighting system, with light, medium, and heavy attacks, as well as a magic attack. While the system is fairly simple on the surface, the true depth is seen in the combos players are able to string together. If you've played Skullgirls, you know what this engine is capable of, and Them's Fightin' Herds definitely takes advantage of that engine. The music in this game is really damn good, with the character select music and stage music both changing instrumentation based on what characters are on screen. The animation and character designs are incredibly well done, with plenty of attention paid to even little details on how characters look and move. Each character feels unique, both in their design and in their fighting styles. While I'm sure the art style and the fact that it's even tangentially related to My Little Pony is going to put a lot of people off, I can't stress enough how great this fighting game actually is. There's still some work that needs to be done, like an expanded roster, story mode, and ranked play, but what's already here is impressive. While this might be a niche subject material with a niche art style in a niche video game genre, there's a lot to love in Them's Fightin' Herds. If you're a fan of fighting games and can give the art style a chance to grow on you, there's a lot of enjoyment to be had with this game.
Whispers of a Machine is a pixel art point-and-click adventure game. I'm not usually down for these, but hot damn, Whispers has a lot going on for it. First, the pixel art is lovely and takes me back to some of the old PC games I played as a kid. The gameplay does everything it can to avoid annoying you, allowing you to skip through dialogue, letting you highlight all the clickable items in a room so you don't have to pixel hunt. When talking to someone, you can discuss topics from your notebook. Gotten all the info you can? That option is crossed off when talking to that person, so you know you don't need to pursue it further. Know everything you need to know about a topic? That topic is erased from your notebook, reducing clutter and annoyance. To keep things from getting too simple, some complexity is added through your cybernetic abilities, which felt really fun to use. You have a scanner which can highlight evidence if you know where to look, a temporary strength upgrade that will allow you to do things like bust open locked doors, or pull out things that are jammed into place. And finally, my favorite, a biometric sensor, which you can use to monitor a person's pulse and mood. You can use this to figure out when someone is lying, and then decide how you want to deal with the lie. Your choices will add to one of 3 attributes, while taking away from 2 others, and these attributes will have an effect on how the story plays out and what options you have when dealing with people. The dialogue choices all felt like they were consistent in what tones they were trying to set, and I felt good about the options I picked without them feeling like the obvious correct choice. I like this one a lot, and I'd love to play more of it. Unrailed is a co-op train track building game. You have a wood axe, a pickaxe, and a bucket. There's a train heading slowly for the end of an unfinished track, and you need to gather wood and metal to drop on the train so it will make more track for you to go place. Meanwhile, the train is slowly overheating, and you'll have to deal with getting water in your bucket to cool it down, or put out fires if they break out. It's hectic, especially playing with strangers without voice. It reminded me a bit of Overcooked, as everyone needed to be working on something, but it got frustrating real fast if someone was in your way or had something you needed immediately. In one match, it was a tough pill to swallow when we forgot to build extra bridges around our track so we could get back to our tools we desperately needed, and we had to watch the train slowly chug towards its inevitable doom. But when you succeed, you get to choose from new or upgraded train cars to add to the train, which can do things like improve crafting speed, capacity, or make adjacent cars more efficient. I don't see it being a game that I'll play several times, but it seems like it would be fun for an evening to yell at with some buddies.
Trailmakers is a sandbox racing game from developer Flashbulb Games. Trailmakers is essentially a Lego building game and allows players a great deal of freedom to construct different cars, boats, planes, submarines, and all other manner of vehicular monstrosities. However, the customization and building is tied directly to your enjoyment of the game, as it's really all that Trailmakers has to offer. With the limited time I spent with the game, I found the building to be somewhat unintuitive, and I often found myself struggling to get pieces to snap together where I wanted them to. Even when I did end up getting everything pieced together, most of my vehicles ended up failing to even sit upright, and with no clear idea of where I went wrong, the whole experience ends up being extremely frustrating. If the building aspect doesn't seem appealing to you, then you aren't going to be excited for what else Trailmakers has to offer. There's a basic story survival mode, where you crash on a planet and are tasked with finding different vehicle pieces that scattered around the world during the crash. The mode feels incredibly barren, and there's just not a lot to do when you aren't excited about building new vehicles with the parts you find. There's also a few race modes, but the driving in Trailmakers is incredibly basic, and once again, if you're not enjoying building your own race car, there's little enjoyment to be had here. If you're into building games like Besiege or Kerbal Space Program, you might find something here to enjoy. The building aspect of the game seems very deep, and from what I've seen online, players are able to make some pretty amazing contraptions. However, actually playing any other part of the game is so simplistic and boring. While I wouldn't go so far as to say that Trailmakers is a bad game, it's just that it's simply not for me, and one I won't be playing any more of. Bad North is a real-time strategy/tactics game from developer Plausible Concept. Bad North tasks players with defending different sets of islands from rampaging Viking invaders. Players go from island to island, attempting to evacuate and recruit people along the way, as well as collecting different items and upgrading their units. Gameplay at its core is real-time tactics, with you moving your units around a grid and combat being fought automatically when units approach each other. However, because of the more laid-back pace of the game, it ends up feeling almost like a tower defense or even a puzzle game. Vikings can approach each island from any direction, and with multiple pathways they can use to reach the houses you're trying to defend, You have to be able to quickly react, plan, and execute a strategy whenever a new wave comes in. If you fail to act quickly or make even a single mistake, you'll soon find yourself overwhelmed with no way to recover. If an entire unit is killed during battle, that unit is permanently dead, unless you're lucky enough to find an item that lets you revive them. Since you can only take 4 units into battle, planning for the worst and having a variety of backup units available seems to be the way to go. While the laid-back presentation and pace of combat might feel at odds with the sometimes brutal and unforgiving difficulty, it helps to keep each run from feeling too stressful and keeps you focused on playing the game. While it remains to be seen how replayable Bad North ends up being in the long run, for now, I'm having a surprising amount of fun with it, and I'll be putting at least a little bit more time into it. Street Fighter V is the latest entry in the long-running Capcom fighting game series. Street Fighter V features most of what Capcom fans would expect, some of the most refined one-on-one fighting systems, as well as a great cast of characters both new and classic. Players are given 16 characters to choose from at the start, with a total of 40 characters available through DLC and Season Pass content. The cast is pretty diverse, with characters fans have come to expect like Ryu, Ken, Chun-Li, Sagat, and Blanka being included alongside newcomers like Rashid, Nikali, Abigail, and Minot. While the amount of DLC available for newcomers might seem like it has a lot of content locked behind a paywall, this is all post-launch content that has become available over the past almost 4 years that the game has been out. Players are also not forced to buy new characters with real money, as you can also earn the in-game currency of fight money as you play matches. The rate that you earn fight money is actually not too bad, and it feels like grinding out currency for new characters is actually a viable way to unlock them. The current version of Street Fighter V also includes the Arcade Edition update, which adds the classic arcade story mode to the game. This was a feature that was sadly lacking at launch, and is a welcome addition to the game. The arcade mode features different branching paths for each different era, from Street Fighter 1 through 5, with a side trip to Street Fighter Alpha as well. The arcade update also brought new V-skills for each character, adding even more depth to the already varied and complex variety of strategies and combo potential already available in the game. The netcode also feels like it's well executed, something that isn't always a given when you're playing a fighting game on PC. I only played a couple of ranked matches online, but lag was minimal the very few times it was present at all, and the controls felt just as tight and responsive as they did when I was playing offline. Training mode offers more information for newcomers and vets alike, with players even being able to see and study frame data on each character in the game. Overall, Street Fighter V is an amazing fighting game, especially now that it includes the Arcade Edition update, and is definitely going in my fighting games rotation list. Dirt Rally 2.0 is a simulation racing game from developer Codemasters. Much like the first Dirt Rally, 2.0 focuses on rally and rallycross style races, with a big emphasis on the off-road point-to-point races. Dirt Rally is a simulation style racing game, so don't expect Need for Speed or Burnout style drifts and style, but something closer to Forza or Gran Turismo. In addition to the simulation focused racing style, rally races themselves are something that a lot of players in the US might not be familiar with, and it can take a bit of time to get used to them. Racers have a co-driver who will be giving you instructions on what turns and obstacles are coming up in the road ahead. Learning the language of these pace notes is vital to your success in this game, as it's your only indication of what's coming on the road ahead. When your co-driver is calling out right 5 of a crest, left 3 don't cut, 100 right 1 tidy into left 2, if you want to be racing as fast as you can without crashing, you'll need to learn what these callouts actually mean. Luckily, it's a fairly straightforward system, and if you don't feel like looking up a Wikipedia article on pace notes, you can figure out most of the notation just through context in the races. Once you get the hang of it, racing around corners through trees and along cliff sides feels great, and there's a real sense of accomplishment when you're able to really fly along the track at top speed. Dirt Rally 2.0 features a wide variety of gameplay options, allowing you to customize the difficulty to fit the experience you want to have. If you just want to have some fun doing races, turn on traction control, anti-lock brakes, and all the other assists, and you'll be racing alongside the best of them in no time. Once you start to get more comfortable with the co-driver and style of racing, you can turn these options down or off completely and start giving yourself a real challenge. Dirt Rally 2.0 has a lot to offer all racing game fans, even if you aren't into simulation or rally racing. The controls are spot on, the visuals look stunning even on my aging PC, and the difficulty options make it accessible even for newcomers. I'll definitely be playing more Dirt Rally 2.0.
Two Point Hospital is a very silly hospital simulation game. You're given an empty hospital and your job is to plot out doctors' offices, pharmacies, wards, diagnostics, etc. You'll have to set up rooms, fill them with equipment, and staff them. But your staff can get tired and need a lounge to take a break and recharge, so you need backup staff. and sometimes they're not enough and your patients have to line up and wait, so they need entertainment and food and drinks and a place to sit. And all this costs money, so you may start to get tempted to hire cheaper workers or treat people who aren't fully diagnosed, or heck, ask them to wait while you build what they need for treatment. And all of those risk having your patients die. When they die, you lose reputation, but also their ghost haunts your hospital. I hate simulation, planning, building type games, but for some reason, I wasn't complete poop at this game, and I actually had fun playing it. It was fun growing my resources, and the super silly diseases and PA announcements kept me laughing along the way. I recommend it.
Graveyard Keeper is a management sim from developer Lazy Bear Games. Graveyard Keeper is similar to games like Harvest Moon and Stardew Valley. With players coming into a piece of property, they are tasked with improving and upgrading over time. Graveyard Keeper starts with the player being hit by a car, leaving them possibly dead and now in charge of an old, broken down graveyard that they'll need to clean up if they want a chance to see their loved ones again. Players need to replace headstones and fences around graves, cut down trees that are in the way, and even get rid of some of the more unsavory types currently buried there. Graveyard Keeper features a very deep and complex crafting system, allowing players to create new headstones, tools, materials, food, and all manner of other items in order to further their progress to perfecting their graveyard. There's a lot of information to take in almost immediately, and it kind of seems needlessly complex. Crafting certain items can only be done at specific benches or workstations, some of which you aren't able to place where you want them at the start. So, in between doing any actual work, you'll need to figure out what workstation you need to be at, what materials you need, and check if those materials can be gathered, or if you need to make them at another workstation somewhere else. Each day feels like you're just wandering around doing a whole lot of busy work, but not actually accomplishing very much. Goals are rather vague and directionless, leaving the player wandering around areas hoping they find the person or material they're looking for. There's some humor to the writing, which helps offset the dark and grotesque nature of the game's setting. However, characters feel shallow, and the story seems surface level at best. I really wanted to like Graveyard Keeper, but everything about it feels needlessly complex and empty. Crafting is way too complicated and has way too many unnecessary steps to follow, even for crafting some of the most basic of items and materials. The world feels as empty and lifeless as a real graveyard. I just don't see myself wanting to spend too much more time with this one.
Middle-earth: Shadow of War is an open-world action RPG set in the universe of Lord of the Rings and sequel to Shadow of Mordor. Did you play that game? Well, this is basically more of the same, but not quite as good. Didn't play that one? Well, let's discuss what all the fuss is about. You basically have the combat of the Batman Arkham games mixed with the climbing of Assassin's Creed, with some original bits sprinkled in like tapping A when climbing over things for a very lovely speed boost. Where Shadow of Mordor made a name for itself was its nemesis system. Major enemies have names, faces, and traits, and when you fight them, if they kill you or run away, then the next time you encounter them, they'll remember you. If they defeated you, they'll taunt you about how you died, or if you made them run away, they might be scarred or upset over you ruining their reputation. On top of this, you could brainwash or promote commanders to sow discord in the ranks of the enemy army, causing assassinations and beef between officers that you could take advantage of. Everything clicked with cool skills, fun gameplay, a big world to explore, and an interesting, unique story within the Lord of the Rings lore. Shadow of War basically reuses the gameplay of the first game while deepening the Nemesis system in some fun ways, like Nemesis who surprisingly return from the dead, and some other pretty obnoxious modifiers, which make for great stories to tell your friends. The story and characters kinda take a backseat this time around, and there are some liberties taken with the Lord of the Rings story. Shelob the Spider is now a sexy woman. Alright. I can't remember any of the other characters other than Celebrimbor, who is just a grumpy ghost now, and they barely make an attempt to hide the fact that he's corrupted by power. Going for all the collectibles and story took me about 25 hours, with the true ending locked behind this terrible grind of repeatedly doing fortress battles for another 25 to 30 hours. I looked the ending up on YouTube, and it's nothing special. It's definitely not worth playing the quote-unquote endgame content, at least not for that long. If you like the original, this is largely more of the same, and it's pretty fun. If you haven't played the original, in my opinion, it's the better game, but this one is still pretty darn good compared to a lot of the other Lord of the Rings games out there. So overall, how is this bundle? The humble original was short, sweet, and I need to find the soundtrack because it had great tunes. There was a lot of variety in the games on offer, so it's hard to feel left out on my preferences. There were several games that I would call headliners, and enough options to pick from that even Humble Classic members get to exercise their choice. All the games here were also rated very positive or higher on Steam, which is a rare sight from Humble Bundle these days. We got an overwhelming amount of feedback asking us to bring back the total cost of the bundle, and that's a bit complicated given that everyone will have a different total value based on the games they choose. So here's the retail price listed for each game. If you're on the basic plan, which games should you pick? For my money, I'd suggest grabbing Middle-earth: Shadow of War, 2 Point Hospital, and one of the indie games from a genre of your choice.
For my game, Street Fighter V is an easy choice, as it's added a lot of content since launch and has a lot to offer, even for casual fighting game fans. Dirt Rally 2.0 has enough difficulty options that make it easy for everyone to get into, and Bad North is a lot of fun as well. If you're looking for what games to drop, whether you're on the premium or classic plan, well, that's a harder one to pick. Every game this month has very positive reviews or higher on Steam. There were a few that Austin and I didn't love, but it's hard to deny that those games still have merit and a community of people who love them. We're going to have to tell you to go with your gut this time around, and hopefully you've gotten enough information out of our reviews to tell you which games you probably won't like.
The other piece of overwhelming feedback we got on last month's review was that we failed to answer the question, is Humble Choice an upgrade or a cash grab? While I wasn't blown away by the selection of games last month, I did feel the headliners were able to carry it, and that the bundle was worth it if you didn't own the headliners already. This month I can definitively say that Humble Choice feels like an upgrade for those who locked into the classic plan. Getting to see what's there ahead of time so you can make an educated decision about whether or not you want to pause a month without the fear of missing out on games you might want is very valuable. If you're not on Classic, $15 for 3 games doesn't sound like an upgrade when you compare it to $12 for 8 or 9 games, but at the same time, it's still quite a deal to get 3 big headliners for $15. Paying another $5 to get 9 choices will be a better value for some, but that's more for people who can enjoy indie games or like a lot of different genres. Is it worth it / is it an upgrade really depends on your situation, and for me, it's a clear upgrade. Thanks so much for making it to the end of the video. And an especially big thank you for everyone who helped us reach 5,000 subscribers before the end of the year. We're going to be doing a special Q&A video this month, so if you haven't gotten your questions in on our community post or on Discord, you can also submit your questions in the comments below. It can be silly, serious, whatever you want to ask. We'll be taking questions through January 6th. Finally, a huge thank you to Michael Slater and all our patrons over on Patreon. Your support means the world to us. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all next time.